This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by our friends over at ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as an option for the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Monday, September 23rd, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 803 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Late last week, leaders in the U.S. House of Representatives confirmed that a vote will be held this week on the Safe Banking Act, which would lift federal prohibitions on the banking industry from working with state legal marijuana businesses. We've tracked this one for a while now, as recently there have been a lot of calls by prominent lawmakers and activists to delay this vote until a more comprehensive piece of legislation involving social justice provisions can be passed. But on Friday, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer of Maryland said that the House would be taking up the Safe Banking Act this week under a quote-unquote suspension of rules, which means that the bill will need to get a 2/3 majority to pass, or 290 votes. Marijuana Moment spoke with a staffer of Representative Hoyer who said that it would likely come to a vote on Wednesday, so we'll certainly be circling back to this storyline later this week. Pop over to Kyle Yeager's Marijuana Moment story on this for more details and context. Tom Angel over Marijuana Moment picks up on today's second top headline with a continuation on our lead story's storyline, as he details the aforementioned pushback that the Safe Banking Act has gotten by social rights activists and politicians. The big news on this one is that 4 top Democratic senators, 3 of them presidential candidates, all retweeted a Marijuana Moment headline over the weekend, along with their support for the idea of delaying the Safe Banking Act vote until a more social justice-focused bill is passed that takes a more comprehensive approach to marijuana policy reform. Over the weekend, following the announcement that a vote would be held this week in the House, Senators Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Chuck Schumer all retweeted support for delaying the vote. And of course, all of those senators except for Senator Schumer are running for president. This doesn't really bode well for the Senate version of the Safe Banking Act, so it'll be interesting, to say the least, to see how this plays out. Pop over to Tom's story for more information here. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com. Marijuana Business Daily closes out today's top headlines with a pickup of the growing dispensary count in the Canadian city of Calgary, which just passed 200 approved shops, more than the entire provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Quebec have put together. A total of 63 of those 200 plus shops have been cleared to open, with no limit set for how many can be opened in the future. City officials say they will leave it up to the market to work out how many legal marijuana shops will eventually be open, a pretty refreshing take in the face of other Canadian cities and provinces that have decided to go the other way in severely restricting the number of dispensaries allowed. I think a good metric to put up on this is the number of legal liquor stores in Calgary, roughly 450, which gives you some idea of the overall local market for intoxicants. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, ease.com, California's top one-stop website for legal marijuana delivery, as well as the same for folks living in the Portland, Oregon area. Pop over to ease.com to check out today's crazy good daily deals, which slaps 40% off the cost of select items from companies like Bagged Vape Co., Bloom Farms, Kingpen, Bright Labs, Absolute Extracts, Punch Edibles, and Fuego. Just use the discount code HYBRID, which might give you a clue about the common theme for today's daily deals, to get your 40% off. That's the word HYBRID, HYBRID. And as always, you can keep scrolling down to check out all the other properly tested, packaged, and labeled adult use marijuana products up for offer, with deliveries landing in less than an hour in the parts of California and Portland, Oregon, where Ease is active. And EaseWellness.com is there for hemp-derived CBD products sent through the U.S. mail to 43 states and the District of Columbia in just 4 to 6 business days. Huge thanks to everyone over at Ease for the support that makes our show possible. All right, time for the blitz. A proposed ballot measure in South Dakota has been approved to start collecting signatures of support, with the biggest bullet point on this one being the main backer of the push for legal cannabis, one Brendan Johnson, who is a former U.S. attorney for the District of South Dakota and son of a former state senator. If passed, the initiative would legalize adult use cannabis for adults 21 years and up and would set up a taxed and regulated sales system. In order to qualify for next year's ballot, supporters will need to gather just under 34,000 ballot signatures in the state of 882,000 citizens. Best of luck there. Wisconsin State Senate Majority Leader Republican Scott Fitzgerald thinks marijuana is bad, so he just killed a proposed bill to legalize medical cannabis in the Wisconsin State Senate. It's that simple. One Republican lawmaker is holding up progress by not letting lawmakers do their job and consider legislation. That sounds kind of familiar. A quick update to a storyline we were watching last week as the New Hampshire State Senate voted to override a veto by Republican Governor Chris Sununu of a bill to allow medical cannabis patients and caregivers to grow at home, closely following a vote to do the same in the state house, clearing the way for the veto to stand. Awesome news there. According to Stats Canada, legal marijuana sales in Canada in the month of July broke the $100 million mark for the first time, hitting a total of $104 million, counting both adult use and medical. Legal sales started up in Canada back in October, so we're not quite a year in yet. By way of comparison, the state of Colorado, which has a much more developed market, obviously, does around $160 million in monthly legal cannabis sales. There are 5.6 million people living in Colorado versus the 36 plus million Canadians, so there seems like lots of room for the industry up north to grow. The Denver Post has a story up that I hope will raise your hackles a bit. In a case involving a dispute over unpaid overtime wages between marijuana security company Helix TCS and a former employee, a lawyer for Helix TCS had the temerity to argue that since the company is involved in a business that the federal government considers to be illegal, it does not have to follow federal labor laws and thus does not have to pay overtime. That is galling. Thankfully, a U.S. appeals court agreed and ruled against Helix TCS, sending the case back to district court. Presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont spoke about marijuana policy reform on Friday during a campaign stop, along with a panel made up of folks like rapper and activist Killer Mike, actor Danny Glover, and Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's fame. Senator Sanders and the panel talked about the overall failure of the government's war on drugs and the need to legalize cannabis in a way that creates economic opportunities in the communities that for too long have been most negatively impacted. There's good video to go along with this one, which I'd suggest opening up for the watch. And finally for today, the Colorado Sun dives into the latest developments in the Colorado legal marijuana drinks market, with new CBD-infused seltzers hitting the market as tips of the spear from beer makers. There's still a lot of restrictions on crossing cannabis and alcohol, so beer makers are taking the easier route in developing CBD and even THC-infused seltzers, a broader category which also comes with the added perk of being insanely popular right now. There are a lot of challenges that are still yet to be solved for marijuana drinks, but the potential upside on getting it right is huge, so this is not a storyline that you want to ignore. Probably a good story to read today. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Ease, and to all of our awesome patron listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the patron listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today. Today.
One take, Shay. One take.